Hey guys, if you have to swap out a water heater, in this case we have a Dometic water heater here. If you have to swap one out for some reason, let me show you how to do that. It's super easy. Alright, so first things first, let me show you what we're dealing with. So in this case we have a cracked water tank. On the back there's a crack, I'll show you where it's at. It's normal with these Dometics if they had water and they froze over winter. It has an inlet on one side, outlet on the other side, and usually the crack just forms between the two fittings on the back of it. A good, easy way to tell, this was just dripping on the floor quite a bit under the belly. And when you get to the back of the water heater, you'll see it's surrounded by some foam, which I'll show you. And all you have to do is stick your finger at the bottom between that little foam and the tank itself, and if you feel it wet, then you know it's got a leak inside. The tank is cracked, which means a new water heater. It's easier to just get a new water heater than try to replace just the core of the water heater. So let me show you how that's done. First thing I did, shut off gas. I went inside and we purged out the gas through the kitchen stove to make sure there's no gas when I disconnect this line. So now that it's empty of gas, I have the tank bypass so I can disconnect the water lines behind it. And once we do that, we can just go ahead and remove all these screws around here and pop the whole thing out, being careful of the electrical because it still has electrical components. There's an outlet on the back where this plugs in. This specific model, not all of them have them, some are hardwired, but this one has an outlet on the back, which is easier. Just unplug, pull it out. The only other thing is we're going to have 4 wires behind here that we're going to have to snip and later connect with some butt connectors, but we'll get to that here in a minute. Let me show you the back of this water heater, show you what we're dealing with here. Alright, so this is the back of the water heater. So you'll see I kind of push this foam out of the way. But usually a good, easy way to tell is just stick your finger behind here at the base. If you see water pouring out from here where my finger's at, usually it's a cracked tank. So if you peel that foam out of the way, this is what usually happens. So between the cold line that's way back there and the hot line, you see the crack forms right there and you have busted tank. So to swap this, since we have water already, the tank is bypassed, all we have to do is disconnect the hot line, disconnect the cold line, and we're free from the PEX piping. All we would have to do from there is find the outlet, which in this case, I haven't really looked for it yet. Looks like it's going to be on the opposite side. But what I can do is just pull the tank slowly out so that I can fit my hand behind the water heater as it's coming off and unplug it from that outlet. So let's disconnect these water lines and then disconnect the gas line. We'll start taking this apart. Alright, so that there released the tank from the PEX. We have the cold and the hot lines disconnected. So let's go ahead and move to the front, disconnect gas, and we'll take all the screws off. Alright, so with this open, I went ahead and pulled the plug just for any remaining water to drip out. And what we'll do is disconnect the gas line and then remove these screws and cut the caulking so that it breaks free. Okay, I'm going to find that outlet. I can see from here that the cord is going towards my left, so it should be somewhere in this area. So they have a zip tie tying the wires to this little strap, so I'll break that strap. There we go. Cut that. That way it gives me some slack. All right, you can see my little workbench I have here going on now. So That's why I use a little table that I can just wipe off. It's just a work one, so I'm not worried about it getting dirty. We'll disconnect these just to make it easy. I'll just cut it on this end. If you're ever doing this, you can't always trust the color of the wiring. So I try to leave a little bit so I can just use that with the new tank. All I have to do is match the color of that wire that I cut off. So we can toss this. One important thing I will point out while I'm doing this, and I see this here, you see this little washer? That is from the fitting, the water fitting, which, let me move you a little closer. All right, so from here, from this angle, you can see the water fitting way in the back right here. This was on the right side, which is the inlet, so I know that's a cold line, the blue line. And the washer got stuck on the tank. It's normal. But what I've seen people that have tried to change tanks before in the past and end up with a huge leak call me out. A lot of times it's just the washer. It got stuck on the tank and they didn't put it back on this fitting. So just like that, we'll put it back to where it belongs. So when we put the new tank on, there's no leaks. So let's get back to this tank. All right, this tank is done. We can go ahead and toss this. And here is our new tank. So what I was saying to confirm it's a leak, you can put your finger in here. If you feel it wet, it's most likely coming from a crack between these two connections. So we can take these off. We'll pop this back in the hole. And first thing first, I'll go ahead and screw this in place. We'll try to work the gas line through. Then we'll worry about caulking everything at the end. But I'll try to get the gas line through here. Let me turn this around so you can see what I'm doing. It's got this little seal so that the gas, if it leaks any gas, it stays on the outside and doesn't go inside the RV. So I'm just going to pop this cap off so we can use that here on that. And what I'll do is just splice it. Just make a little cut so that we can slide it over the gas line, and then with caulking, we'll seal it. But that'll just make it easier so that we can just pop that on and call it good. So let's go ahead and get this in the hole so that we can line it up with the screws, and then we'll put everything together. Actually, before we screw it down, let me go ahead and wire this up since we have it all handy. We've got 4 butt connectors here that we'll use. Doesn't matter the order you do these wires, so that's not a big deal. As long as you hook them all up correctly, you're good. All right, now we can tuck this behind here. Now here's the part that probably want gloves or something, because this is sharp, and you might notice from different videos I'll end up with cuts all over. But you just want to bend this out and up. All of them go out so that we can run the new screws on them. But before that, I'm going to go grab some butyl tape so we can add butyl tape to create a seal behind it. So let me cut this off first so that we can free that up, and I'll grab some butyl tape so we can do the rest. All right, so I'm just going to apply the butyl tape, like I said, just behind this. That way when we put the screws down, it creates that seal. So butyl tape, there's nothing to it. You just peel this back off, and that's all it is, like a putty. So we'll just stick that on there and then screw it down. I'm just going to finish bending this a little bit. All right, now we can screw this down and that'll lock it in place. All right, when you're working with these hinges, pay attention to it because it's got an L, it's got an R for left and right. So when we go put this on, it's going to go right here on the edge. So what you'll see is that I'm going to start putting screws on the middle. These I can put all of them, but I'm going to leave these for last just because of the hinge. So now we've got this. Let me pop this off. So these are for all 4 corners. Okay, let me back this off. This off. It's just to kind of squeeze it because of the metal trim. So I have to undo these so we can put the hinge on. And we can slide this on. There we go. And left, slide the hinge on so we can line up the holes and get these screws in. So here's the cleanup part. Just grab a rubber. This is a tool you can get at Harbor Freight or anything. It's for car detailing stuff, to pull some tabs and do different things like that. I'm just going to get these out of the way so nobody gets cut on that edge. So what you want to do is just scrape it along this to get rid of that excess. It'll come off a lot easier on a warm day. We're fixing to head into winter here. We're in fall, cold season, so it's a little stiff, but it'll still do the job. And you can clean it up as much as you want. It doesn't have to look perfect, but of course you can just clean it up as much as you want. I'll go ahead and add caulking like it had before, just the top up to about here. I'm not worried much about the size. With the butyl tape, it shouldn't get any water behind it anyways. That's why it's creating that seal, but I'll still add just a hair like it had. Next thing I'll do, I'll feed the gas line through this little hole and we'll put that rubber cap on it. First I'll feed it without that rubber cap, and once we can hook it up and all, I'll add silicone just to seal it off so no gas will backfeed inside the coach. So let me get behind there and just kind of push the gas line till we get it to come out. All right, there it is. So we'll hook it up. And like any flare fitting, to properly seal it, you have to tighten it all the way till it's nice and snug, back off just a hair, and then retighten it. Since it's a flare fitting, it creates a perfect seal. I'll still come back. I always do 2 double tests. I'll do a bubble test and a gas sniffer to make sure there's no gas leaks once we're done. That should be good. I haven't had any issues yet tightening fittings, so that should be good, but I'll still do testing. Put the seal on. Let me move the camera. I don't know if you can see. All right, that's a little better. There we go. So I will caulk that to create a perfect seal so no gas feeds back on the inside. So let's go to the back. We will put the water lines on and then work with the electric. All right, I have it here at this angle because this outlet right here is where the water heater was plugged in. I could see the wire coming off to the side and it just goes plugged in right there. But I won't plug it in yet. We'll just go ahead and hook up the water lines first. Let me just point out, since it has a rubber seal, you don't have to tighten it with tools. I had to break it loose with the tool previously to take it off because it was so tight, but the rubber seal creates a seal, so it does not need any Teflon. And if you're using tools to tighten it and stop a leak, it's probably because that rubber seal is too worn out. All right, make sure everything else is good. That was somewhat loose. It's a good thing. Tested it. So the little wiggle trick just kind of lets you tighten it a little more by hand. So that's just a tip. So now, before we plug it in, actually turn it on, I'm going to turn the water on. I'll leave the camera here because I want to see if we have any water leaks before we do anything else. Let me turn the flashlight on so I can see a little better. Okay, so let me turn the bypass off. So far everything's okay. We have water filling up the tank. Yeah, it's filling up. All I did was open the little check valve outside, which I'll show you in a minute, to make sure water was coming out. Looks like we're good. but I'll wait till it's full that we know we have water coming out to make sure this isn't leaking out of the hot. But let me take you to the front just to show you the check valve. All right, so here we are at the front. This is the check valve here. It's actually a PT valve, pressure temperature valve. If it builds up too much pressure, it'll start dripping. If it gets too hot, it'll start dripping. I'm gonna leave it open till it starts to drip so we know we got all that air out. If not, it builds up too much pressure and that might cause it to drip. So I'll leave it open as it goes filling up. Once we see that water is coming out, then I'll close that so it only has that much air in the system that'll compress. That way there's not too much pressure, and that's how it ought to be. So we'll give that a second. There we go. Close it. That means the tank is full. Well, I'll leave it open. I still have to cock the gas, so I'll leave it open. That way we can make sure there's no gas leaks. Let's go behind. What I'll do is plug it in and make sure there's no leaks on the back. All right, so here we are at the back and everything is nice and dry. I see no leaks. The floor is good and all the fittings are nice and tight, so no water leaks. So let's go on and do some gas testing. Since it has water, I'll go ahead and plug this in. I don't think it's turned on, but if it is, I'm not worried about it now because it has water. I don't want it dry running. There we go. Let's go to the front. We'll check for gas leaks. All right, so I have my gas sniffer warming up. I have to wait till that light goes out and then we can check for gas in a minute. As soon as I turn it on, that's just it warming up. And bubble leak, a leak test. So I always do 2 tests just because of liability issues. Let me get that off. There we go. I always do 2 tests since people will live inside the RVs and all. I don't want any gas issues at all. So let me turn the gas on and we'll go ahead and test. All right, gas is on. So let me turn the sensitivity high. Right there. The kitchen stove is coming on, so I know there's gas in the line. I went ahead and purged the system to make sure we had gas flow. Perfect, no sign at all. But just in case, bubble test. Perfect. So now, all I have to do is caulk this rubber here seal so no gas goes inside. And like I said, I'll just add a little bit just on the top, the corners, and that's it. It's that easy. All right, have a good day.